Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thought Leader Thursday ACE edition. Today I'll be hosting. My name is Treyson Marks. I've been an Alteryx ACE for like 5 or 6 years, and just really excited to get with you to talk about acing the advanced exam. Today I'm talking with my colleagues. I'll have them introduce themselves here in a moment, and we're just excited to get through this with you guys. So, Marcus, if you want to start.
Sure, yeah, welcome everyone. And today we're gonna talk about that, how to ace the advanced search, as Treyson said. I'm one of the newest aces, so I just got this that year. So yeah, it's an honor to be here with my colleagues.
We're excited you're here.
You want to go, Thales?
Thales?
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, everyone. Thales Donizeti. I've been here at Data Meaning for 3 years now, ACE since 2019. And yeah, I'm glad to be here again. I've been here in the show a couple of times. Help to add some more, share some of my experience with you guys.
Excellent. And then Chris.
So my name is Chris Lewis. I am currently working at JLL as a Senior Director of Business Intelligence. We handle probably about 16 or so clients just on my team. And then our broader organization handles about 30. So excited to be here. I've been an ACE for about 2 years. Actually, at the conference, it'll be 2 years. I was part of the first all-digital cohort.
We're excited to get you in person. Man, that's been rough. I don't know why I keep forgetting that we haven't done this for 2 years, but I'm crazy. Excited for Inspire. Yeah, it is crazy. This is Thales. Were you at Inspire in 2019?
Yes, I was in Nashville.
Gotcha. Nashville was a good time. So, and then Marcus, is this going to be your first one as well?
Yeah, actually, that will be my first one in person. The last year I was just live, but
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to see everybody. Inspire's great because it, I don't know, I feel like it re-energizes me about, my whole life is Alteryx at work, right? So sometimes it's easy to forget how excited newer users get about Alteryx, right? And so when you just get in there and you start talking to people about their use cases and what they're doing and what they're learning and how they're changing their lives with a tool like Alteryx, then it's energizing. It's a good time. So today we are talking about the Alteryx Designer Advanced Certification. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'm going to show you what that is, where it is, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that are available to us in the community, and then maybe our own personal experiences with taking that course. So let me share my screen real quick. If you are on the Alteryx community, all you have to do is go under Community Learn Academy Certification. Brings you right to this page. And if you've done your core certification, you know where this is, and then your advanced certification exists here. I have to take mine again in 6 months. And then the expert certification. And then actually this predictive master, I think this came out like today. So there are now newer opportunities to get certified, which I'll probably never have this because I don't do any predictive work, but it's exciting to see what's available. Okay, let me ask you this first. Were you guys able to pass it on your first go, or were you like me where you had to take 2 or 3 because you're terrible test takers? Like, what did that look like for you guys?
So I'll go first. My experience when I got advanced was 4 years ago now. Yeah. At the time, I had already been using Alteryx for 4 years. I didn't realize there were free certs out there. So mine is a little bit different. Most people figure out that these are out here and just go and try them. I was actually in the time where you had to sign up and then you got your link the next month and then you had 3 attempts in a month. And it was very different back then.
It was.
And I passed on my 3rd try. So
Oh man, that was
it was a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I got you know, in the advanced cert, there's the 4 practical questions, and those are rather important. And both of my first 2 attempts, I only got 2 of them right. And then finally on the 3rd one, I think I passed with like an 83%. So just barely. But my first experience was very different from what I've had since then.
Marcus and Thales, are you guys geniuses and figured it out on the first one?
Actually, when I did, but in the first time, just after I get the core certification, I really need to I think it was 3 attempts until I get my certification as well. So the first one, I really, it was not good. I don't remember the point itself, but something around 40%. It was totally not good. But the second one, I still remember, was very frustrating because I got around 75 or something like that. So it's very close to get. And yeah, in the first attempt I got, but just this year I renewed my certification, and that time I passed in the first. Right now I can do that. And you, Thales?
Yeah, I can say, mine was on the second attempt. I took like first time for 4 was 4 years ago as well. I do remember that the first time the problem was with the practical questions. I ran out of time. So that got me that got me below the 80%. But yeah, and then the second attempt, I actually tried to remember a little bit, and I know I know that for the advanced cert, sometimes some questions repeat, right? And I think one of them that was critical that I didn't have time. I actually took my time and tried to redo it after the exam. Tried to remember a little bit and try to put up the logic before I did the test, and then in the second attempt I passed. But that was that was in 2018, the first time that I took the advanced cert.
Gotcha. It's funny that we all said, like, we all got tripped up on the practical questions, right? Like, I think going through that, I mean, now I take certifications for Alteryx like every year, right? So I'm familiar with the cadence. If I get my practical questions out of the way at the beginning, it leaves a lot of space for the rest of this stuff. So, what's your strategy for that, Thales? Do you go and you do those first now, or do you just wait till they come up, or like how do you do that?
No, I usually like to read the questions first, because and it doesn't matter if it's practical or if it's one is just knowledge, because if I read it and I say, okay, this is gonna be a little hard to put up, like I didn't really understand the question, then I pass the question and then I go to the next one and I leave it. If I have time, I will revisit. But my strategy usually is just try to read the questions first, and then I decide if I'm gonna take it right now or if I'm gonna skip it and go back to it.
Interesting. Okay. Marcus, do you have any?
Yeah, for me, actually, it's a little different. When I start the test, to be honest, I'm not a good one doing tests. So I go like a desperate, trying to find the practical questions. And I go directly to them and, really clicking really fast the button to pass to the next until I find. And when I find that, I start all the practical questions, and usually because we have 2 hours to do that exam, so I usually spend my first hour doing just the practical questions, and the second hour I go back to the others and start to do them. So if I don't have time enough to conclude all the 4 practical, I leave it this way and go to the others, and then I start. If I have time, I go back and finish the practical. But usually, I don't have so much time.
Chris, do you have any insight on this?
Yeah, I used to be like, Marcus, having to click through to the end, and then I think somebody at Alteryx realized everyone was doing that strategy, and the last time I took it, they were all at the front. So I was really excited, and I usually do focus on those first. If I know that there's like an iterative macro or some kind of crazy complex macro in the one of the practicals, I'll skip it and sometimes go do the rest of the exam and then come back and be like, okay, I'm just gonna give myself as much time as I can at the end to do this.
Understood.
If I run out of time, I run out of time. But I really focus on those other 3.
Yeah, one thing I remember in the exam, and I don't know if you guys use that too, but we have the flag option to can mark a question. I already talked with many people who don't even realize that is there, but that's very useful. So many times when I was doing the theoretical questions, when you don't know something, in the first read, so you don't lose much time on that, just flag that question and go to the next and go doing the ones you know really quickly, and in in the end you just go back in the flagged ones. Actually, the way I like to do that.
Yeah, I think that flagging function is newer too, because that's how I'll like. In a moment, we'll look at some of the tools that are on there, but there are definitely tool sets that I don't understand necessarily as well, because I just never, it's not part of my analytics life. So that's why I like to flag those, and then I usually do shot in the dark. So that's where I'm doing a lot of Googling to figure out my answer. And that's what's nice about this advanced one. If you've done the core before, this one is also open book. So you can go and kind of figure that out, but also play around in Alteryx, like within Designer, and figure out the answer to those questions. Real quick, I am going to go talk about the exam prep guide. If you're here and you see these different exams, you can hit the prep and user guide here on the. You'll see it here.
You can just share the screen. Okay.
Oh,
now share it.
I apologize. I thought it was. Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah, again, under Learn Academy certification, you see the certifications, and then under here you'll see the prep and user guide. So if you click this, it actually takes you to like a grouping of these, so all of them exist in the same place. And then you have your advanced cert prep guide. And then you can download this and open it up, and we go through everything you're going to need for taking this test, right? So we see our overview. It talks about it's 2 hours. You do 1 attempt every a week. Oh, this is interesting. That's new, I think. And then there are only 40 questions on this one. I'm sorry. The last one I took is the partner certification, which I think is 80. So I forget which one. But this one's a smaller, but they understand that there you have these 4 practical application questions. So you're actually building things in Alteryx while you're doing this work. Talks about the different types of tools that we're going to use. If you aren't using like the multi-row and the multi-field tools, you need to step it up, because these are awesome and they can help you a lot in your development life as it is. Advanced joins and parses, spatial analytics, reporting, macros, analytic apps, and data investigation. And this is where I always fall down on the data investigation tools, because I like never use these, right? So let's go back.
The data investigation tools. Treyson. They are very useful for the predictive exam too, because and the expert exam. The predictive one I haven't taken because it just launched, right? I know they used to host on the conference though, but those tools, if it's good, like just saying, like, if we have a path of certification, right? You can see like how the tools that are covered in every exam, they evolve, and they're linked, like, like they introduce you that concept of data investigation tools, and then the expert exam, you have to use them in some practical scenarios as well. So that's interesting, like that kind of link.
What if I want to learn these? What's the best way to like learn a tool set?
I don't know like what Chris and Marcus do, but I usually, like, if I want to learn about the tool itself, I think the best way is just opening Designer and seeing the example of the tool. Like when you click on when you right click the tool, you can see like show an example or something, and that, I think that's the best way. And then of course it's good to read the help article about the tool. But there's also the other good thing is the community posts that I think they're called, the series is called Tool Mastery, and that's very useful too, because it gives different approaches to how to use the tool. So I think a combination of those things help, but of course, like real world questions also to add a lot of background to why you use them in the first place.
Yeah, in my case, I totally recommend what Thales is saying, and I think that actually that's the best way to learn any new tool. You have everything there, all the documentation ready to you just read and learn. But to be honest, I'm a little adventurer, so it's much more like do what I say, but not what I do. So usually what I do is I take the tool, link it to a giant database to see much data, as more data as I can, and I start to play with the tool. When I don't find what I need with the tool, then I go to the examples and to the tool mastery. To be honest, that's a waste of time, right? But yeah, I think what Thales is mentioning should be your first first practice when you want to learn something. So that will be like a shortcut to learn something. And you, Chris, how you do? You use the documentation as well?
Yeah, sometimes I use the F1 shortcut. Is it F1? Yeah, I think F1 takes you to the help documentation. I think for specifically the advanced cert, I used a lot of the interactive lessons, especially for the spatial tools. So at the time I first took the exam, there wasn't, I don't believe spatial had tool mastery yet. And then also lately I've used the sample workflows, learn one tool at a time. They have all sorts of tools in there now. They now have spatial in there as well, which that was the biggest section that I struggled with because I did not use spatial in my day-to-day job.
That's how I went through it too, right? I think if I recall, like there was I don't know if the question's still there. It's like a UFO question. Talks about like UFO sightings within a time and a range, and I had not done any of that spatial work here. So I mean, if you look at my interactive lessons, it's the only one I finished, and it's what got me through the advanced exam the first time. that I went through it. So I also love these, and now I'm probably going to do the predictive grouping and the modeling, all these, because I want to get my expert certification here too soon.
Yeah, and just adding to that conversation here, the spatial is something I also don't use in my day to day. And when I did in my first attempt, I was not even knowing about the existence of these tools. But yeah, I study and I passed it. But I think the interesting part was in my renewal recently. I was still without using the spatial, but just I think a couple days or a couple weeks after I completed the exam, I got my use case with spatial, and when I had that use case, to be honest, I was much more prepared just because I studied for the exam. So I actually didn't have much difficulty to develop the use case because I just studied before. So that's one of the things that I like in these exams, because even when you don't have any use case using these tools, just because you studied that, you already open your mind and you learn something you're not used to use. And if you something in that topic come to you, you already be prepared. At least will be knowing what you need to do and where you need to find things to help you.
Yeah, I just want to add that I hate spatial tools. No, yeah. No offense to everyone who works with geospatial use case, because I think they're pretty cool. But like you have to be so creative on how to handle all those spatial objects. Like I think like for the advanced exam, I think actually it's the use cases are straightforward. Let's say like how you have to use the tools, but like for example for the expert exam, I didn't even touch the spatial question because it's like you have to know geometry a little bit. You have to split the objects, and there it's not anything. It's not straightforward there, but that's just my personal opinion. Of course, I definitely know that you guys have a different point of view on using spatial.
I think I've just enjoyed it because it is my background. I worked in logistics and kind of being able to apply a lot of those things that I saw in my life there to, the tool set has been a lot of fun, like understanding routing and like things like drive time or clustering objects in an area. There's a lot of, maybe I'll go off on a tangent here. A lot of like in the trucking industry now, what they have is like they started doing what's called geo fencing, which is where you can you're doing like satellite pings on on a truck, and so they can constantly understand where you are, but they build polygons on a map, and so if your ping enters one of those polygons, that's how so on time delivery is big in trucking. So like if the ping shows up in the polygon before or at the delivery time, the expected delivery time, then we as the trucking company can say, hey, we were there on time and maybe we didn't get in or on time. But anyway, it's stuff like that is available through geospatial analytics is awesome. I'm going to convert you. That's my new goal, Thales, is to convert you into
No, but just to be honest here, I love the use cases, and actually when I was working with Tableau, I loved to play with geospatial use cases and present them in dashboard and stuff. But I don't like to play with them on the back end. Like I hate how you cannot like create, for example, intersections between different kinds of objects. without having, like a challenge to work around, because it's not like straightforward. Like, like if you have a point in the line or something, you get the intersection easily. No, you have to basically, split those objects into other things, and then, like start to play with the geometry and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I hate the most. Like the use cases, I love it. I like, it's very interesting what you just said, but I don't know, not something that I would like to work with.
The math behind geospatial analytics is insane. It's Dina, who's another one of the aces. We'll have to talk geospatial with her one day. She's actually like a geospatial scientist, and so like she got her master's degree in all this, and she knows ArcGIS and all those other programs, and I love getting her talking about it, because she'll talk about how things that you don't think about, right? Like how Alteryx does a good job with geospatial work, because how the math works on the back end, it actually it understands the curvature of the Earth, where some mapping programs don't. And I'm like, that's the nerdiest thing I've ever heard, and I love it. I love how people get excited about their work and stuff like that. So, cool. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, Thales, let's talk about your expert exam, and like expand on the path to like your expert exam. And then talk about maybe some of the differences with that. And then you also just got certified in SnowPro, right? You're a SnowPro. So how do I frame this question? How's the experience different with something like this and something like that? Go ahead and explain. I'll rethink through this question.
Yeah, no problem. I think I got where you're going. Yeah, the advanced cert is different in many ways regarding the expert one. I think the similarity is that you're introduced with some practical questions. Although I think in the core exam you also have some practical questions, but I think they're a little bit easier, right, than in the advanced ones. But yeah, with the expert ones, with the expert exam, you don't have any multiple choice questions or knowledge questions that you have to answer, like conceptual stuff, right? So it's all practical, and you have to. It's a proctor exam, so it's not like something that you can take at any time in your home or anywhere else. So you have to reserve some time. You have to clean your desk. You have to follow all those guidelines that show your ID and things like that, right? So I think that first this gets you a little bit more nervous, I think, right? And the pressure, of course, you're paying for the exam unless you have a free voucher or something. For the exam, you're paying $150. So yeah, I think the pressure is a little bit harder on the expert exam, and the practical questions, they are they involve a bigger use case than in the advanced one. Like in the advanced one, you do have some, like, I would say that there are some tough practical questions as well, right? But usually they are very use cases that can be defined like in 2 or 3 sentences, right? For example. But in the expert exam, no, it's a big text that has a lot of details that you have to follow, and you actually, when you deliver the question, you have to be careful to follow everything that is being asked, right? So everything that you do is graded, basically. And there's no like partial points on a question. It's either you got it right or you got it wrong. So you have to be careful to follow everything that they're saying in the question. There are only 7 questions, all practical, like I said, and you have to just leave your workflow, your work detailed with everything, the outputs that you generate, if you create or if you fix anything like macros and stuff, you also have to leave it there. So I think at that point, like you have to be more careful and you have to prepare a little bit more for the expert exam. And of course, like the kind of questions that are in the exam are more advanced in terms of the topics, right? So like I wouldn't recommend like for a beginner user that hasn't gone through the other side of Alteryx, like other than just preparation, integration with other sources, right? I wouldn't recommend even going further to the expert exam because you have to know a little bit of predictive. You have to know spatial, like spatial is in there. Chained apps, macros, and things that are, I think it's more advanced in Designer. But were you going to ask something?
Well, I was going to ask you to expand a little bit on how you're answering questions, right? Because in the advanced cert, even in the practical questions, it's not like we have to give our workflow to them, right? It's they ask the question and then they have 4 answers. Then you have to figure out which of those answers is right through building a workflow. Do you on the advanced one? Do you have to like turn in your workflow?
On the expert one?
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the expert.
Yeah. No, on the expert one, you don't have any. No, you have to build everything from the scratch, right? Like they give you what you need to do, and in some questions they actually give you what the final output should look like in terms of the metadata and the fields and stuff, like the format, right? But you have to build everything from the ground. So basically, you just have your input there, and you have to build your workflow and get to the final output in the format that they are saying. And usually, like with some questions, they say, okay, you this output should have like 2,000 rows and this amount of columns or these columns, right? Or for example, if it's a reporting question, they say, okay, this is kind of the format that should look like. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it should look a bit like that, like with those objects positioned that way. So yeah, they kind of give you the guidance, but you basically have to build everything in your workflow, like the way that they grade the questions. It's something that they do not, they don't say it. It's something that they'll say if it's right or wrong, but you don't have a way to say, okay, why is it wrong? Why is it right? Right. But basically, I would say like, if your question, most of the times, if your question follows what the format should look like at the end, like they say in the question, then you're probably gonna get it right. Like if you got into that 2,000 rows at the end, like in the same format, then you probably got it right. But yeah, it's one of those that you get out of the exam and you're like, oh my God, did I pass? Did I miss something? Like I remember like the last time I took Jared, which he's another ace, he's another friend of us. He also took about the time that I took, and he was all anxious about it as well. And he actually nailed the 7 questions, which I thought, wow, the guy is awesome, right? But I was surprised. I got 6 right, which the only one I didn't touch was spatial. I thought I was actually surprised by my score. But
is it they offer you 7 questions and you have to get 6 of them? Is that correct?
No, you have to get 4 of them right.
Oh,
yeah. But I'm gonna say like I don't know, like I wouldn't say I'm very fast on developing. So like the first time I took, I found really hard to even get 4 questions done. Because they're big use cases, right? There's a lot there are a lot of tools that you have to put there. There's a lot to test. You have to make right. You make sure you're you're doing it right. And yeah, and then of course, like I passed into my third attempt. So my third attempt, I was a little bit, you know, I was I was used to the exam, so I went a little bit faster. But first time you take it, I think it's hard to actually get all the 7 questions done. So I really recommend, like in the user group we hosted in Sao Paulo, I actually did a presentation on that, and I really recommend to go to those 4 topics that you're sure of, you know, like, because if you get 4 right, you pass it, right? So basically, the strategy that I had, it was always like, I'm gonna try to take those 4 that I'm confident, like those 4 topics that I think I'm more familiar with, and then if there's time, I'd actually go to the others. But yeah, time is a big constraint, I would say, with the expert exam. I don't know, like the advanced one, as well, if you think about the practical questions, but it's also a variable that you have to take in consideration.
Yeah, I think for the advanced, the time is also important, uh, like in the expert, but much more because you have more questions to answer, right? So in the expert, you have a few questions there. You really will need to spend much time on each one, but on the advanced, you have many, so you don't, you can't spend so much time in each one. So is the moment where you need to be fast and realizing if you really can do the question that specific moment or not. Because if you lose, like, 2 minutes more than you should, probably you already wasted a good part of your time there, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Now I want to take it. Now I'm like, I should go take it. I don't know why I haven't yet, but it's because it costs money. That's why I haven't taken it yet. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Like last year, they actually provided a 50% discount at Inspire, and I think they're actually, yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're gonna do it again, but yeah, at Inspire, I know that last year they provided a 50% discount in the exams.
I'll have to check that out.
Mm.
Let's move on. Let's move away from that, because rabbit holes. We can go talk about whatever we want all day. But let me ask you, Chris. Within your organization, do you have requirements for certifications, or like what does that look like? And then, can you talk through that, or even if you don't, then you don't have to. But
Oh no, we do. So shout out to she's now an ace emeritus, Fee Gordon, and several of the other folks here at JLL. They've gamified pretty much everything around Tableau and Alteryx. So there's different like levels. You can earn badges. So just like now, you can earn Alteryx certifications and get badges for LinkedIn. JLL has individual ones for gamification purposes. And each level, I think there's 5 levels. Fee's actually giving a talk at Inspire on the Alteryx one, so you can go and join that one and learn all about it. There's
I think
5
we have
different
several
levels.
people
Yeah,
who are actually going to go to that one. So
yeah, it's like 5 different levels, and I think just to get to the second one or the third one, you have to be core certified. So in order to kind of move up in the rankings and get through there, you got to get core, and then I think it's the second one, and then the fourth one you have to get advanced. So expert is not in there anywhere, solely because the free aspect. And then I think, what is it, like 40? I think there's actually less people who have passed the expert than there are aces. I still think that, is that still the case? Yeah,
I think it's like 36
Yeah, that's true.
experts. Yeah.
it's getting close to where it's gonna probably surpass.
No, I think it was last time I checked, it was 41
Oh, is it?
31.
people with the expert exam, and I think there are more than 50 aces, right?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's getting close, but yeah, there aren't necessarily requirements, but at a certain point, we are putting in, hey, you want to kind of move up, you want to do well, like go out and get the training, leverage what we have out there, and especially leverage the different communities to kind of progress. So not a you have to do this, but it's like one of those loopholes. Like, do you want to do well? Then yeah, you probably want to go get those.
Really? Gotcha. Do you know what like percentage, or could you give us a ballpark of like your users that are at least core certified, and then just
within the Americas team, so I think there's close to 20, between 20 and 25. I would say we just had like 7 people start within the last 3 months. So I'm going to exclude those. I'm going to go down to about like 15 to 18 of us. I would say probably 12 or 13 are core certified at least.
nice.
And then I think like 3 to 4 are advanced certified. So we're definitely getting there. And then out of the new people that just started, I think one person passed their core before they started with us. Like they
Nice.
used the trial and went out and did the core before they started, just to get a head start. And then I have 3 folks on my team that started since January, and they're all working towards it. So,
Gotcha. Interesting. I want to bring something up that Marcus said earlier that I felt. So Marcus said that he had the instance where he had learned so that he could take his certification, and then he eventually ran into one of those use cases, right? I've had similar experiences, right, where I only learned geospatial for this. Do we see a lot more? I'm curious in your thoughts and opinions. Do we see a lot more like people learning to get their cert, or people understanding everything they need before they come into the cert? Like, is the cert really a method of people directing their own learning, or just a byproduct of the work that we do?
it's an interesting question. And I think one of the things, Treyson, I don't know how long you've used Alteryx, but how often do you continuously learn something new that the tool can do? Or, oh, you didn't do it this way. This is the more optimized way, or something, I think one of the nice things about the certs is it can open up your mind to what Alteryx can do. Because you're not always necessarily thinking like, oh, I can go out and create a trade area and figure out what customers are in this area, and let's create a marketing scheme around that. Or we're looking at trying to identify, can we take like building specs and turn them into like geospatial coordinates and try to like leverage Alteryx to kind of analyze different things. So it's like, after you take the advanced cert, can you then take the things you learn from the advanced cert and then actually start applying them to problems? Like, I would say the same thing is true for like weekly challenges, right? You go in with the concept of you want to learn, and then you want to take what you learn and go apply it. And I would say the advanced cert is one of the best tools to do that.
I totally agree. And I think you'll even see that in the core cert too, right? Like new people, I know that we send in my user groups that I've worked on, and even within organizations, we try to send the people through those as quickly as possible. I think that's the value of it being free, right? Is it's not, how do I put this? So like we have the expert cert, which you have to pay for. And that might, at that level, it probably makes sense because you want people who aren't just like, trying to get the certification just to have the certification, right? And so they're going through it and they're asking. We see this on the community. People will ask questions like they'll try to get answers because they can get answers quickly on the community. They're trying to get answers to certification questions while they're taking the certification, right? So I think having those two free are great because we can throw people at them and learn it. But then having the expert cost money, it's like, it's a real thing. Like, it's a real deal. And it really does show what somebody like Thales and Marcus, you have yours too. Is that correct? Actually, Chris, does everybody have it here except for me, the expert cert? Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't? Okay.
No, I don't have expert.
Oh, gotcha.
Actually, just Thales. He's the one.
The expert and Snow Pro, and I'm sure he has a lot of other great certifications. That
No, the other one I'd say is Tableau, but I haven't renewed it. So, and I think the cert actually doesn't exist anymore, which is the Certified Associate one. But
Gotcha.
they changed it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're changing it, and now even I think one of the more slightly advanced ones, like you have the base level one, and then the one above that has a lot of Tableau prep and Tableau server stuff in it too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually it gets away from more of the like designer concept and goes more like global Tableau product concept.
No, and one thing I was gonna say, Treyson, for example, in my experience, I learned a lot. Like I thought, like, for example, the optimization tools, they were so hard to configure and to understand. And the beauty is that when I was studying for the expert exam, and there's also a prep guide for the expert exam, I stopped and started looking at it, the optimization examples, and I finally understood how to use it, why to use it. And you know, like, I thought, okay, this is not that hard, you know, like once you like do 1 or 2 or 3 examples, and you start relating things with the tool, then you think, okay, yeah, I could actually use that with a lot of use cases that I often have a different approach, right? So it's very interesting, like what Chris was saying, like you get out of the bubble that you're used to, like especially with, like, when we like actually when we're working for when we are consultants, we actually see a lot of different use cases, right? Because we're dealing with different kinds of customers. But even though, like, you tend to try to stay in your comfort zone, like the integration aspects, the preparation aspects, and everything, and you think like you want to take to the next level, like go to advanced analytics or something like that, you're all like scared, right? And when you take those exams, you start looking at the content, and the community has been great with that. I think they're exploring those other areas a lot more recently. The learning paths, like I learned so much from the learning paths, like the time series one and the predictive one. They're great right now. They have very good examples, and they cover a lot of concepts as well, like from concepts that come from statistics and those kinds of things, you know. So yeah, I think this is the beauty of going after certifications, not just having the title, but learning so much from it.
Yeah, one thing just to add here is one of the things I like about the certs as well is how Alteryx decide the topics for each level. Because, you know, for example, for the advanced cert, you have the spatial, and always, you know, you always have a practical question for spatial, and you always have, for example, a question for iterative macros as well. So when I was in my first attempts, I was no good with spatial, as I said, but in this time I also didn't understand well about the iterative macros. So was with the practical situation, the practical questions there in the exam that forced me, after I failed, I started to try to reproduce with the same data set I got in the exam how to do that thing with iterative
Mm.
macro. So I started to try many and many times until I finally understand how that works. And since that moment, I never forgot how to use iterative macros. And actually, right now, because of that experience in the exam, the iterative macros is the easiest one to me to do. Even more than batch macros, for example. you know. So that I really like that. I read that aspect of the exams. You can learn a lot. Going back to your first question, Treyson. So I think are in the if you learn with the exam or if you learn to the exam. So I think actually it's both, right? So you need to study to do the exam. Any exam of we're talking here, you need to study, right? But
Mhm.
the exam itself would be like one addition to your study as well. So you're gonna study for the topics, and during the exam, you're gonna see things you never saw before, and you start to learn more things. And even if you fail in that attempt, you're gonna learn things that will be useful for your next attempt. So that's one of the things I really like on these exams. You know? Too
Sorry.
deep.
No, I'm just thinking through that. It's yeah. I really, I guess I just really enjoy taking them. I like learning that way too. I mean, it's just a formalized version of kind of what we do in our everyday lives. We're all in consulting, right? So we have to listen to, maybe that's it. Like back to the question, like the iterative macro, right? I don't remember, does it tell you that you need to build an iterative macro, or do you have to kind of understand that, like,
You need to understand that.
gotcha. So
I
understand.
will say something
Yeah.
controversial. Every instance I've found for an iterative macro on the advanced exam, I can solve with a batch macro.
I was gonna say I didn't use a macro at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's instances like I had one person after she passed, she's like, she still didn't get one of the practical questions right, and she's like, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be an iterative macro. I couldn't solve it, and then we looked at it and we just like logicked through the problem, and she's like, oh yeah, I didn't even need a macro there. Nope.
Right.
sometimes like the way they frame the question, you're like, oh, iterative macro. No, it doesn't need to be. But it's all how your brain thinks about solving the problem. And like I always tell people when they go into those practical questions specifically, solve it how you think you would want to solve it, because that's more than likely how you're going to get it right.
Yeah, and the good thing with the weekly challenges is that I like to see other people's solutions. So it's like, like I thought of solving a problem one way, but then you look at other people's solutions and you're like, wow, there was a different way of doing that, and I,
Yes.
never used this tool or something like that.
Absolutely. And I think sorry, I'm still thinking through the iterative macro thing. I apologize. I don't know if anybody's been over to the Trifacta community, but they have monthly challenges too. And I went through my first monthly challenge over there today, and I was like, okay, cool. But it's funny because I think I solve things over there like in the same way I try to solve with Alteryx. Like I'm trying to think through a flow, and like, and sometimes I'll build something and then I'll use a join as a filter because that's how I do things in Alteryx sometimes, where maybe there's a way to actually build it in a recipe. And anyway, so yeah, so I built it, and then I went through and I looked at everyone else's solutions. I was like, wow, they did it in way less tools than I did, and way less. So it's fun kind of going back and learning through something like that. But I appreciate the availability, I guess, for us to be able to go and look at things. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Interesting. Let me back up to one thing I think that Chris said. This reminds me actually of a really early weekly challenge with Alteryx. It's like number 6. There's one where it's like they want you to solve it with an iterative macro, but you don't have to. And so I'm curious if that and I need to take my advanced exam again because I don't remember this question, but sometimes I wonder if maybe this is where I'll leave you guys at. Do we solve questions on the exam in a way that we just pound out an answer, or do we solve it in the way we probably should solve it for like real world application, if that makes sense? Because like an iterative macro makes sense from like a process perspective, right? Like if something changes and you need another layer, an iterative macro just takes care of that for you. I don't know.
I solved for practical application.
You solve for practical.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, do we have any questions in the LinkedIn? Give me just a second. Let's talk about the prep guide real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Yes, I use the prep guide. I think everyone in here has used the prep guide. We've discussed that. There's on Alteryx, there's 2 things, and I'll leave them in the chat on LinkedIn. There's actually a certification learning path. So if you just want to go through it, there's actually videos that'll push you through that and help you guide that for you. And then there is and I'll send links to all of the things that actually let me drop them in there right now. Here's where you find your certification. Here's the exam prep. And then here's the learning path for advanced certification. So if anybody wants to use that, it all exists there for you. Any parting words from you guys?
Anybody who's about to take the exam or retake the exam, pay attention to little details. Mm-hmm. Really focus on the especially in the practical questions, focus on the data. And double check any assumptions you make. Fun fact, I just retook mine. I missed one of the practical questions, ended up with an 84%. because I didn't validate an assumption of mine. And had I done that, I would have gotten a 97. So it's like one tool.
And that's really more for bragging rights at that point, right? Because you have to get 80 and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be careful with time. I think time is always, at least for me, because I'm not that fast, I'd say. So, yeah, and the lot of spatial in the I don't know if it's still there's a lot of spatial in the advanced one, but I remember and I took it last time. Yeah, and reporting, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and what I can say as well is start focusing in the topics you know, and go to the other topics after that. You can guarantee your questions. And remember that exam, you can study and you're gonna pass at some point, but the one who passed in the first time will get the same certification of who passed in the third. So don't be afraid to fail in the first time. That's normal. Just use that opportunity to learn more and retake the exam, and you're gonna pass, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming in today. We'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.
Take care. See ya.